messed up and wrinkled. What's the deal, my people? You know it is the Don Tony Teflon. I'm back at you. Another one. This is the Gilded Age, season 2, and I got my old school hat on for this show. I'll be rocking it every week. You know, I should feel dusty there. Ain't wore it in a while and stuff like that. But also, I have a special guest with me because I don't know nothing about these costumes and everything else. So I got to bring on my girl, the one and only Heidi from Costume Code.
Oh, hi, Tony. It's so nice to be with you tonight.
It's great to be with you. Glad we can be here for the Gilded Age Season 2 pregame show. What up to everybody who is rocking with us? People that's always here. Luna Cascade is always here. Thomas, fall asleep to my voice. I don't know if that's going to be. We'll take it. We'll take it. Miss Yoni's Travels. Looks like Gilded Age picture in there. Thank you for coming by. OW is in here. Muhammad, my brother from another mother, is in here. Cool Gamer is in here. There's a bunch of people in here. Thank you so much for everyone coming out here and watching this stream. I really like this show. Heidi, so this show has been on for 2 years now. Do you think it's getting better? Or you think that it's just treading water?
Well, okay. I've only watched 3 episodes, like like you did too. I don't think you got screeners, right? So
No.
it's still sort of early, and I just finished the 3rd episode today. So I think it is starting to go, here, but I'm kind of waiting for something to happen.
Yeah,
It's
you think you
slow.
would,
It's
right?
a little slow for me at the beginning.
Yeah, you would think something would happen. I think that the big reveal was that this bed maid or whatever she was called is
Oh
now,
yeah.
up there. I think that was that big reveal. They wanted to run that first and everything
Yeah.
and make her the foe. How do you like the fact that they did that with that character?
Well, I forgot actually that I didn't remember that her husband, that George hadn't told her what had happened there. And I do understand why he didn't. Like, I do, in a sense, understand that. And at the same time, I do understand why she would be upset. So I feel like he probably knew that he couldn't win either way
Mhm.
by telling her what had happened. But at the same time, I understand where Bertha's coming from, that, the maid who was still under the house, under her roof. And like she said, she was doing her hair and selecting out her clothes. So I can really understand why that would for sure cause some
I
tension.
understand too why she would be mad, but still, come on, nothing happened. If she believes nothing happened. Now, if she believes something happened, then I would think that she'd be upset. But if she really trusts her husband and knows nothing happened, then I mean, he should have told her, no doubt about it. But I think you gotta let that one go. I think she's just
Well,
playing it up a little.
I was thinking about this earlier because this is the weird thing about, even like you see this even in like Game of Thrones or any of these sort of old style shows. Nobody sleeps in the same room, right? Everyone
Mhm.
sleeps in their own bed chamber. And, she has this pretty pink sort of room and he has a more masculine style room. And I guess the idea is they kind of climb into bed with each other if they want to. I'm not sure what their arrangement is, but, so it would have been solved if they just slept in the same bed. That never would have happened.
Yeah, it wouldn't. And I don't understand, all right, so this is the time when people actually did that. Then we went to the I Love Lucy time. I think that was the first time they showed a husband and wife in the same bedroom, but they were in separate beds, right? They didn't have them sleep in a separate bed. They had twin beds for them. Like, this is how a married couple actually sleeps.
I, yeah, I think that was to do with the censors back then. I think they weren't allowed to show them in the same bed together. I
So,
could be wrong.
yeah.
I
So this to me, I couldn't be married with someone who had their own. Not my mom and my stepfather are old and they have their own. So I guess when you get a certain age, he snores a lot. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That it's possible. But as a young couple, I just don't see, especially when you're sleeping in this house that's as big as a hotel. I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely. But you can kind of understand where George is. Like, I mean, I sort of thought he was probably like, okay, nothing happened. There's no point in mentioning it to her because he knows what his wife's like. Like
mhm.
she's very, that
Is
she
she
probably
from
would
a
overreact.
well-off family? Is she from a well-off family? Have they given her
I think
background to
she's
her
married
family?
into, like his family. I don't,
Herself, like her upbringing, was she well off? Like her family has a good family? Because I don't know if they. I'm just trying to. Did they say anything about it about
I
her?
don't recall. It's possible. My understanding is that they are based on the Vanderbilts,
Mhm,
and so who were new money, and so it's possible. But he's like sort of a robber baron style,
mhm.
character who's made all his money by himself, and so it. She must have had at least some type of status because I can't imagine that. he would marry someone who, unless it's like that other guy who married the lady maid, he
Yeah.
didn't care.
Well, looking at him, that's an Anna Nicole Smith type situation. Like
Oh yeah, for sure.
she was trying to fuck her way to the top from the beginning, and she was going to find somebody. Eventually, you're going to catch one of these old men who, that's all they care about is just having a young woman in the bed, and he has so much money. And I told people like that one of the benefits of getting old is you don't have to give a fuck anymore. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what anyone says. You're gonna die. It doesn't matter. When you get older, you have no filter. You could do whatever you want. What is someone gonna hit you? You're an old man. No one can touch you. They can't do shit to you. They're not gonna put you in jail. You're an old person. You could just fly off the handle. And I think that is where he's at right now. He doesn't care about anything. This girl put it on him. Like, and she's experienced. Like she tried to do it to George. I mean, that's ballsy to really jump in someone's bed naked. And like it didn't seem like they had anything before that would make her think that she could just do that. She just said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna go for it. I'm just gonna get in this guy's bed naked. And he's not gonna be able to resist me." And
yeah, no, for sure. Because there's situations like in Downton Abbey, it's the same show, runner. And I know there was one episode, there was like one scenario where we had something like that, but there was some chemistry between them. Whereas here, it seemed like it was like out of the blue. She was just like a strange opportunist, but I guess she thought like I'm attractive enough. I have a nice enough body. If I just show up naked, he might be like, oh, okay. And then, and the way the gossip works in these households, like, do you find that the gossip is just crazy? Like, and it's not like it's even frowned upon to gossip. Like they just rampantly gossip. So it wouldn't have taken much for it to get out.
Not at all. And John Amaker says he's her sugar daddy. I gotta give it one step. He married her. So I don't know if you can say sugar daddy when you get married, right, Heidi? I mean, when you get married, do they still consider you sugar daddy? No, right? You did the job.
No, not at all. No, she's legit like his. That's why she's being accepted into society because they're legit married, and that's a legitimate arrangement as opposed to what's going on between. I have to look up his name, Larry, and he's doing the architecture for her house. That's actually very scandalous. So no, if you have like, he's a widow, my understanding, he was married before his wife died. He's married. It's completely legitimate. Yeah. And she then gets accepted into society.
And when we look at like Bertha's, like obviously Bertha doesn't like it. Bertha runs the whole family. She's like, I will decide if we even say anything about it or not. Like, no one else has a choice. She's just so domineering that I'll decide. I'll make the call. If we say that's who she is or not. Do you think that eventually Bertha is going to expose her for who she was? Do you think
Oh yeah. Now what I did today is I watched the trailer for next week, right? Mm-hmm. For sure. Because she knows she has that little bit of information on her. And because I think because she slighted her in her own home, she came to her home to slight her. She was willing to kind of overlook it, especially if she got a box in her new theater or opera house, I should say. But now that she hasn't given her anything, in fact, she insulted her in her own home and slighted her in her own home. Now I think it's going to be full on warfare.
If she does, let's say she says, well, you are my handmaiden, you are nobody, you're my handmaid. And then she comes back like, oh yeah, you fired me because you found your husband I was in your husband's bed.
Well, this is the risk, isn't it?
Right.
I know that's the risk. Now, this is where it's funny because, I was saying it's a little bit slow going, but like one of the things I sort of expect out of a show like this, because it's obviously a little bit pulpy, it's a little bit soap opera like. I don't know if back in the day, Tony used to watch Dynasty or Dallas or any of those types of shows, but I'm expecting a cat fight. Like I want a cat fight or I want like some kind of, huge thing to happen. And this is what I think that they're building up toward. This whole thing with the opera is just sort of like is sort of a way for us to get there, I believe.
Yeah, I could see frankly, Scarlett, I don't give a damn situation. I could see maybe a one slap across the face and a dramatic But I can't see them actually. I just turn
Yeah,
into like
we won't have like a 1980s dynasty like,
they're gonna
style
fall into the
cat
water or
fight where they're
nothing like
pulling
that.
their hair. It won't be
Yeah,
like that. It'll be of the whatever the Gilded Age equivalent of a fight would be, I suspect.
yeah. That's what I would think that we are gonna see
Mhm.
there. One slapper going across there. We talked a little bit about them, so let's go into the sun. We brought the sun up. The sun. And I
Yes.
think that I think that he's being played. I think that this woman has slept with many young men. She uses her money to seduce these young men, and then she's out the door. I heard people in my comment section that I put in there saying that she was the one whipped on him. I don't see it that way. How do you see it?
I agree with you. I think he's fallen for her. Like it's in a way, it's like sort of his first love affair, like
Mhm.
at least that we've seen, right? I don't, she was married, she's an experienced woman. In the old days, we used to say divorcee. She's a divorcee. So she's, they're hot to trot. She's been around kind of thing.
Mhm.
So for him, she's an older woman, sexually experienced, is probably like super exciting and intoxicating for him. Whereas her, she doesn't really have anything to get out of the relationship, right? Except to have her a beautiful house designed and have some fun. So I suspect that, yeah, she's going to drop him like a hot potato once she's done with him.
So that and it's gonna ruin his name and help
Yeah.
ruin the family name. Now, if they have two scandals, like she may not be able to risk to expose this handmaiden because she already got the son scandal, and to have that would
Mhm.
be back to back. It may be too much. Thank you, John Five. He says, "Thank you. I'm new to your channel. You're the only channel doing this live. Well, thank you. Hopefully, you subscribe." And John is from Canada.
Oh, nice. He's from my country.
Yes,
Yay.
right where
I
Heidi
just
is
realized I
from.
have my Life is a Witch thing. I had that from Halloween. I forgot to take it down.
So
Life is a witch.
if people aren't familiar with Heidi, real quick, Heidi, can you give a little bit of your background on you?
Sure. I'm from Toronto, Canada, and I am a YouTuber and I talk about costumes on my channel mostly. But I love Tony sometimes comes on my channel. We talk about other things too.
Yes, yes. She's a costume expert. And we had pictures of costumes. She could break down the whole costume and tell you everything about the costumes. Like
Yeah, and you've got actually a couple of really beautiful costumes behind you from first season. And I've been posting stuff on Twitter. But Tony, maybe we can talk about the costumes a little bit later when you're
yeah.
ready.
Yeah. Well, do you have pictures or you want me to post it?
I don't have pictures. But what I was going to tell you, if you go to my Instagram, I have a couple of I've been sharing quite a few pictures. I am going to do a video. I am looking to interview the person who makes most of the costumes, though. So if that happens, it's going to be at the end of the month. But what I wanted to tell you is that a lot of the costumes in the show are
Mhm.
based on actual, historical costumes. Some of them come from paintings, some of them come from fashion plates. So the costume designer she was heavily inspired by the era, which is around, I think, 1880, is the 1883 or so.
Are you on Costume Co again on Twitter?
Yes. Costume.
Cinemato.
Yeah, Cinemato. Yeah.
Cinemato.
Hi,
All right.
Carl. So
Carl,
yeah.
you're back in the house.
Do you do that too to him? I always tell him that. I'm like, go eat your big tin of pudding. Go sit on the roof and eat your pudding.
Let's see if I can share some of these pictures and stuff like that. You have a picture. We have a picture. Let me see if I can share a picture, and then we can get you to break down this costume and tell us exactly what's going on here. I think it's here, and there we go. Can we see this?
Yes, there you go. Yeah.
Right.
So this is Gladys from season 1,
Mm-hmm.
and it's based on this Tussaud French painting, as you can see. So the white gown with the yellow bows.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's funny because I was like, I just kind of came across that. Obviously there are other historians who had pointed that out, but I kind of discovered that on my own, which I was so happy with myself. I'm like, oh my God, I discovered that. And then the designer came out and said that, yeah, she was inspired by that actual
So she
beautiful,
looked at this
beautiful
picture. And
painting.
this is a really nice piece too.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Yeah.
All right.
This one, actually, I had a viewer who helped me with this one because I said, I think when I did the video, I said, I am pretty sure that Marion's dress is based off of an impressionist painting. So one of my viewers actually put the link there for me. So it's actually John Singer Sargent who painted that. It wasn't an impressionist. So and that's actually a real person in real life that's painted off of. So I thought that was a really good.
It's a good interpretation of
It's
this.
a very good interpretation.
Now,
Yes.
the thing that I see about these dresses, especially, is the amount of fabric
Oh, yes.
that you had to have to make these dresses, each dress. And it's not like, it's like every dress. How much would these dresses actually weigh?
I would say they weigh a lot. Now there is some understructure. So like for instance, where it kind of goes out of the back, that's what's called a bustle. And oftentimes it would be a cage. So they would have
and that is to make the ass look bigger, right?
exactly like a booty. They want to have a nice big booty. That was popular back then.
Okay.
So it was flat in the front and then big in the back. So the dresses themselves would have tons of fabric, probably like, I don't know, 12, 14, 16 yards perhaps. But then there would be an understructure, but you'd also have petticoats under there. So the weight would be, I don't even know what it would weigh. It would probably be at least 20, 30 pounds.
30 pounds of fabric.
20 to 30 pounds. Yes. Now it's evenly distributed. And then on top of that, they're wearing corsets, right? That give them that sort of nipped in waist. So there's only one scene in the show that I remember seeing, and I think it's actually Agnes. They show her in a fitting and she's wearing a corset. So it would have been quite low, and then it would just sort of nip you in, and then it would go back out like an hourglass a little bit.
All right.
So,
and this inspired from?
What's that?
This was an inspired outfit from a picture?
Yes. So that picture on the left is actually what's called a fashion plate, a French fashion plate. Okay. So back then they didn't have models. They didn't have photography. So they would do these etchings and of all the latest fashions. And so someone like Frederick Worth, who is, Charles Frederick Worth, would, a French fashion house, they would create these outfits and they might have their design. So this would sort of be like if you were like Jean-Paul Gaultier, but you would have it on a plate and then you could order the outfit. But I suspect someone of Bertha's status, she probably goes and has her outfits custom made. And then I was trying to figure out how many outfits a woman of her stature would have. And they were saying, just based on what I looked at, probably at least 20 outfits she would probably have, gowns.
She's had a different one every day. I've never seen her repeat one yet.
Okay, that's the thing. She hasn't done a repeat, and it is a little bit weird, but from what I was reading, you might wear, like, say if you went to a ball, you might wear a gown once or twice, and then after that you would sell it. You wouldn't wear it again because you'd want to be on top of society. It's like being a celebrity, right? You don't want to be seen more than once in an outfit. So, but for the day outfits, I noticed that that Agnes and Ada, they do repeat their outfits because they're very sensible. They're old money, whereas Bertha's new money. So she wants to just constantly be wearing a new
and Agnes and them don't have no money coming in. They're just living on
money coming in. Exactly. Yes.
So they can't really go out there and do it. Now this on the wrist. What is this have a special name right here?
I think what it is she's wearing gloves. And so it's either part of the dress or it might just be part of like a cuff on her glove. So I'm not sure. It's possible it's just a little decoration on her glove, but it's sort of like a little wrist frill. The designer's using a lot of like pleating, like those are pleated, like really fine pleating. So she loves pleating. Like I was like, oh my God, there's so much pleating in this show. And especially on Bertha, she seems to just love it. And then also a lot of weird like angles on their outfits. Like some of the angles are really bizarre. And then just some of the like just the designs themselves are just kind of like outrageous. Like there was one outfit that Carrie was wearing on Easter Sunday. Sorry, I don't have a picture of it there. And I kind of went, oh my God. It was like fuchsia pink, I think. And or red, like a berry red with white. And then anyway, she was in the church wearing it. And I almost fell off my chair because it was so crazy. But I think that they're trying to show, their money and then their affluence. Whereas when you see the other people, like say the servants, they're very, very minimal and darker colors and more muted tones and that type of thing and simple patterns. So you don't see it. And then also with the men are always like sort of in charcoal and black and, you know, neutral colors. And then of course, then the women just sort of pop with their giant hats and everything because of, because they're just like, I don't know, they look kind of like candy, you know, candy.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like, you know, in our
Mysteries.
species,
Yes.
unlike every other species in this world, like every other species, especially when you deal with birds, it's the men who have all the colorful feathers, right? And everything else in
Exactly.
the dance. But in this species, our species, human beings, it's the women who get all that stuff, and men are very basic. So I think it's a little bit reversed there.
It is.
Finishing up on Bertha's family, the daughter. Now, we've seen the daughter last episode. The father told Agnes's son, "Get the fuck out of here. You're not marrying my daughter. It's not for you. It's not going to happen, blah, blah, blah." And he wants her to fall in love and actually love somebody. And then, you know, and actually just be with somebody like that, you know. Where do you think that she goes going forward? What's your predictions for this girl?
I'm not really sure. I was actually like, because, you know, I'm not a really big fan of George, like not, you know, not the actor or anything, but just the character. I think he's kind of an asshole. Am I allowed to say that?
Yes, you can.
You know, he's not a good guy, but as a dad, I think he's actually you know, a loving parent. And you know, the mom, I think what it is with George is that at work, that's his sort of area, but the house he leaves to Bertha just sort of run things, including being very oppressive, like very controlling of Gladys, poor Gladys. And like, you know, I in my video I did last year, like she even dressed her kind of like a doll. Like she dressed her like really, really strangely. So whereas this year you see her starting to kind of come out into society and look more adult, and she's wearing silhouettes that are more in keeping with that. So I haven't seen any kind of connection for her yet. Like, so when she went to see the Oscar Wilde play, she was there accompanied by Oscar's, I guess, ex-boyfriend or something. As her chaperone. And so I don't know. I don't think she's been introduced to the love interest yet. What about you? What do you think?
I do believe I have figured.
Oh, you do? Oh, you have a theory?
Yes, I do have a theory.
You want to tell me?
What I've always, from history that has been told for in American history that I've seen all the time, all these women from America always marry into the royal family. I think that's going to be her big card of the end, that her daughter is going to marry this duke.
Oh, very good. Yes.
I think that's how it will play out, because she's got to, because it's going to look bad for her. But when I look at the way the story is built, you know, I look at these, you know, I'm kind of crazy about it, but I look at how the story's built. It's built on the Duke is arriving and the big Duke. So how does Bertha flip that in her favor and get everything? I believe that her daughter gets with this Duke, and that is what flips the whole thing in her favor. Because when we looked at this episode, it seemed like she's like, "Who's here for me? Who's blah, blah?" And she's all upset, like no one's doing anything for her. But I think we've already seen the dad have a play with this other woman. We see the son storyline. We've seen her specifically say he wants her to fall in love with somebody. The Duke probably doesn't have a lot of money. It's a title, but it's not the best title you can have, right? About them. So to marry into money, take that money with a young girl, I could see this all day going down. I think that the Duke gets with this daughter and she marries into the royal family.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. Well, I was right then. She hasn't met him.
like when these people meet, it's like it happens in one day. Like you just
it
get
does.
married.
You're right. Yes, that totally makes sense. Well, they did show him in the preview. I think that was him, and he looks about maybe 30 or something. Yeah, like late 20s.
Look how old this is Aunt Agnes's son hitting on this girl. I mean,
he's so 40s. Old. He's so old. Like I was kind of grossed out by that whole thing. I was like, really? Like seriously? And yeah, I mean, he's sort of squandered his early years. I think. Now, to be fair, I don't know. I mean, his ex-boyfriend has sort of figured out what he's going to do. I don't really know what you would do as a gay man. In fact, there was one situation, I think, when they were at Oscar Wilde. It was funny because Oscar Wilde's also gay.
Mhm.
When they went to see Oscar Wilde, I think it was what's the character's name? I have to look her up here. She's like the aunt or what have you, or the cousin. And I think he says something, and she's like, "What do you mean?" Like she didn't understand like that he's gay or what have you. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mhm. You talking about
So
the
I don't know what you would do as a gay man. Like he said, he's like, okay, I could settle down. Um, but then you're gonna be in a loveless marriage. It's kind of unfair to your wife who might want
yeah.
to, have children. I mean, you could have children still. I mean, we saw that in Game of Thrones. They tried, right? Like you
Mhm.
try, but it's not always the easiest thing. And so yeah, I'm not really sure what the choices that you would have as a gay male.
I think I see. I think that you
Thank you.
would
Yes,
have.
Aurora. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's the same as today. I think they have the same exact choices. I don't think it's a lot different. Yeah, you can get married now and more accepted, of course, today
Mhm.
than it was back then. But you look at people like Rock Hudson. You look at Elizabeth Taylor said that 85% of the men in Hollywood are gay before she
Mhm.
passed away. So and they all lived the same lie. Rock Hudson was with women, but he was as gay as it gets. I mean, he had caught AIDS from it and everything else. I think that's just the life you live. You just learn to live that life. And I don't think he's unattracted to women. He seems more bisexual than straight gay. Like he sees a woman he thinks is icky. It doesn't, I don't, that doesn't come across like that on him. You know what I mean? I think he's more bisexual. Like,
Oh, you
he,
you mean you think Oscar
yeah, I
oh,
guess so.
oh, okay. Well, I mean, it's possible he could try and convince himself. I'm not, I don't know that he is, but I just thought it was kind of selfish to do that to a really young woman. And
It is.
so I actually did agree completely with the dad on that one.
And
It's
and
hey,
just for
hard
the
no.
and just for the dough. I mean, obviously, he didn't care about the girl. He's just doing it for the dough. He's like,
Mhm.
I could seduce this girl, and she was going for it for a little while.
She
You
was
know,
because she's young and innocent, right?
yeah, for a little while he was going for it. But that's why it's good to have the dad there and everything else. So we
Mhm.
touched
But
on.
I absolutely
Go ahead.
agree. You're so on point though about the Duke because Bertha, she's been holding her daughter back in order to find like the most optimal match, right? Like she wants like, and that would just put her in such a position of not only in America but also in England, which I
Mhm.
guess you could call it Europe. Um, yeah, that would be the ultimate match for her, I'm sure. I mean, they did something like that on Downton Abbey as well, where they had I think one of the girls ended up marrying somebody of
In history,
royalty.
this is what we always see. We always see American women marrying into the royal family.
Mhm.
I mean, we can
True,
go
like
back
Grace
to
Kelly.
Grace Kelly,
Yep.
and then you have
Meghan
this
Markle.
Meghan Markle's,
Yeah.
but they
There's even a
seem.
girl, by the way, there's a girl from where I was born, from Canada, from Quebec, the area that I was born in, who married Albert one of the brothers
Mhm.
of the royal family in England. So Canadian.
Canadian,
A
yeah.
Canadian married into the royal family. Yeah,
Aren't
but
they
no,
the
for sure. You're right. You're
aren't
totally
they
right.
yeah, aren't they there living in Canada right now? I thought they live out
They
there.
might be. Oh, yes, the Markles were for yeah, Megan and what's his name were for a while, but I think they ended up moving back to the States.
And what's his name? What's his name? Harry.
Harry?
The bodyguard son,
I'm not a big monarchist, sorry.
the bodyguard son. He's
The
the bodyguard.
bodyguard. Well, I
He's the
love
bod
Meghan Markle because I used to watch Suits. That's where I know her from,
I don't
which
think
was
he
shot in Toronto.
I don't think he's Prince Charles' son, but that's aside anyway, besides that and everything else. Uh Prince was there. Yeah, so we told about let's go into Peggy a little bit and
Sure.
her story. I got my opinions of what's going to happen to her.
Okay.
Oh,
Well, I have to say, okay,
someone's
this is
trying to
one of the
call
things I
him.
was thinking about before I came on here, that we've got some.
Well,
Oh, sorry, go
hold
ahead.
up. Oh, hold on 1 second.
Sure.
So someone just tried to call in. I gotta set this up for them.
Okay.
You could keep talking. Go ahead.
Okay. No, what I was going to say, my one issue with this season is I'm having a hard time like rooting for someone.
Hmm.
And so of all the characters that I can root for, the only one I really feel I can root for is Peggy. Maybe a little bit of Ada,
Hmm.
maybe a little bit Ada, but pretty much Peggy. Like none of the other characters I'm really, I feel because I would say like Breaking Bad, for instance, like Walter White, like you don't have to like Walter White, you don't have to like
Hmm.
him, but you need to root for him, right?
Yep.
And so I don't really care what happens to Bertha or George or, those characters because I just, they're rich, they're privileged.
Hmm.
They have everything handed to them. They're arguing over silly things like if they're, serving clam chowder at lunch or about, which opera company we should support. So it just seems very, very
Hmm.
obviously shallow. But with Peggy, I mean, her boss was a slave,
Hmm.
and then they're going down to see Booker T. Washington, which is, he's a historical figure. So there's a lot more weight going on. And then also, of course, added to that, the fact that she lost her child,
Hmm.
like there's a lot of trauma that she's going through. So
Hmm.
everything else just seems very frivolous and silly compared to her story arc. I
Yeah,
don't know
I
what you think
think
about that.
that when it comes down to Peggy, in the end, my prediction what happens to her, and I think that she's going to see a black man get lynched while she's down there, or some type of strong beating. She's going to witness
Yeah.
that go down, and I think that she's going to have an affair with her boss.
I know, I know. I'm getting that vibe as well.
And then she's
Wait,
going to lose her job. All right, let me take this call.
sure.
Tell me if you can hear it. I'm not sure if you can
I
hear
can
it.
hear the ringing.
All right, 916, go.
Call from the voice at 916. To accept.
Hello, 916. How are you?
Hello, Tony. How are you?
I am.
And welcome, Heidi.
Hi.
I've been a lurker on your channel for a long time,
Oh,
and it's so good to
wonderful.
see you. Hello?
Yes, yeah,
Oh,
go right
hello.
ahead.
Okay. I think when we watch shows like Downton Abbey or Bridgerton or Gilded Age, we have to remember that whenever we analyze and look at the show, we have to see things as they did. We have to evaluate using the mores and the values of their time. Excuse me, I have a little cold. And, some of the things that we say, um, we don't understand or we would never accept that. If we lived in that time, we might, because those were the rules. So I think that's one thing. And when we look at characters like when you compare Bertha, Bertha, for all of her money and for everything that she has, her will and her ambition, she is still very insecure. That's why position means everything to her. And I believe that roots back to her mother. Her mother was like a cleaning woman who was very ambitious and raised her daughter with that same sort of attitude. Excuse me. So, and then you compare that with what Peggy might be going through right now, going down south to Tuskegee. Peggy has been sheltered living up north. She doesn't know what it's like to live in a society where people look at her like she's an animal or she has no choice, no say so in her own life. So she doesn't have the privilege of wealth or the privilege of race to protect her from the realities of what's happening in the world today. And I think that's why they're showing the juxtaposition between these new rich, old rich, and excuse me, and African American or minority peoples. What do you think about that?
Heidi, go right ahead.
Well, I think that's a really good point. The first point I was going to say though about you know looking at this through the lens of the 1800s, it's a bit hard with a Julian Fellows show because there's so many like anachronisms and modern, like for instance, some of the language is very modern and even their voices and so on. So sometimes it's a little bit hard to just immerse yourself and think, okay, I'm in the 1800s. Like I rarely feel that like about the show. So it's a little bit hard for me to then put myself in the position of somebody who would have lived back then. So that's sort of what my perspective then. But what you said about the comparisons between, you know, being a privileged white woman versus being a Black woman at that time period, even though she's in New York now and she's never been exposed to what would happen in the South and her mother's dire warning about going South. So I actually really appreciate that. I think that's a pretty good perspective.
And I also think when you deal with Peggy, you have to deal with Peggy as though she is a Black woman and it's being a Black person in America at this time is the same. She is an upper class Black woman. Her family is,
Yes.
you know, not well off, but better off than most other Black people at this time. So they are a little
Mhm.
bougie. Her family, she's not, but her mother definitely is. But they brought themselves up. It's not like they don't know what it was. And going back down south for them, for it's got to be a scary situation for a mother, knowing what she left and what she ran away from. So I do think that Peggy she's going to have to be exposed to some hard realities of what Black people go
Mhm.
to. And I think that a lot of, you
Mhm.
know, that happens. When I went down south for the first time to go visit my cousins down there and the way I would live, even my cousins that lived in the Marcy projects, and I lived in a really good neighborhood in Queens. When they would come out and see me, they should be like, "Yo, son, you got grass to play in. I can't believe you got grass," because they had no grass. All of their stuff for the
Mhm.
kids were all made out of solid concrete. It was all concrete back then. They had not a shrub of grass back then. And the fact that I had grass all over, they just was like marveling that I had grass. Yo, you can play tackle football on the grass.
Mhm.
Oh my God, you got grass and all that. So I think we have to
Ex
look at that. I think Peggy, you know, I don't want anything bad to happen to her. I do think she's going to get in over her head with her boss. I think she's going to have the affair because it made no sense for them to bring up if they both lost children unless they use that to connect. And the fact that Meryl Streep's daughter here has told her you're not supposed to be traveling with a man alone, uh,
Hmm.
experience,
you know,
yeah. It
is a problem.
you that may be true, but I think that it's also there to show us that Peggy has been sheltered, and the loss of her child was the first huge blow, that the world isn't perfect. It isn't this little fairy tale thing. Bad things do happen. She goes down south and she begins to see all the injustice. And so I think through that, she will become more of like an activist because I believe her character was based on Ida B. Wells,
Okay.
who was an activist at that time, who
Hmm.
wrote heavily about anti lynching laws and exposed a lot of things that were going on down south. So I think they may be doing that. Uh, they're, they're, they're bringing her down south and they're only using her boss because she can't go by herself. I don't know about the affair thing. They may come close and she says, no, can't do that. Um, but I don't think it'll become a full blown romance. And also, what you were saying about the Duke, I agree with that. I think that something's going to happen there with Agnes and not Agnes, but Gladys and the Duke. I think Bertha will begin to try to set that up, and we'll see how that goes. The only problem I have with a lot of these story plots is we've seen them all on Downton Abbey.
Hmm.
It's kind of wash and repeat on a few things, and it's getting kind of old. So, but overall, just for me, as I watch the Gilded Age and I see all the privilege and pomp and ceremony and everything, it rubs me two different ways. One way, all the opulence and the beauty and everything that glitters and is beautiful is, yeah, I'm drawn to that. But at the same time, I'm seeing what they had to do to get that money. The robber baron thing and how George specifically is dealing with his workers and the things that are taken from them so he could live the way he lives, even though that is the way it was done then. And it shows a big juxtaposition between then and now. But I have to remember, in my admiration for all the beautiful things, to remember what it took to get those beautiful things. So those are my 2 cents. 5 cents or 10 cents on the Gilded Age.
Well, thank you for the call. We truly appreciate it.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I want you to
Great comments.
rest your voice. All right. Take
I
some
know I
honey.
don't even sound like myself now.
You do. You sound as beautiful as ever, but just rest your voice. Get some honey and lemon in there, a little tea, and and then come back on.
I hope you feel better.
I want you to feel better.
Okay. Okay, I'll come back sounding as sexy as I can.
There you go.
And it's good to see you, Heidi.
Oh, it's so nice hearing
for
from you.
joining us.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Okay, take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye now. I think that was Luna. It was Luna, I believe.
No,
Based on.
that's not. That's the voice of 916.
Okay, I'm not allowed to say her name.
No,
I think that's her. I think that's her online name.
No, no. Luna has a name, Luna, but the voice is 916.
Oh, okay.
Luna
Okay.
Cascade. She calls in Luna Cascade. That's not.
Okay.
That is specifically the voice of 916.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah. No, I was going to say about it's true. I think that there is. Maybe Julian Follows is trying to do this parallel between, you've got the Amazons of the world and these people who have so much wealth versus the workers who are making minimum wage or below minimum wage or what have you, don't have health care and that type of thing. Like my husband and I were chatting about it because these they used to break knees. They used to, when they're sitting around at the end of the episode, the workers talking about, we might have to die for this.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some truth to that.
A lot.
And also, when he was talking about the bridge, by the way, oh my God, that rubbed me so the wrong way about how many people died making that bridge. And in Canada, a lot of the people who made our bridges in our country were Native Americans. And so it's true. So, or people who made the railroad were Chinese. And it's like, well, we killed a few people, but we now have this great railroad. So isn't it worth it? Like that really rubbed me the wrong way. And that really made me dislike him even more. And I mean, I suppose they will try to do some type of arc. That's what I think is going to happen with George, is that he'll back down and will cave and give them. I don't know what's going to happen, but that's my prediction. What do you think?
He hasn't backed down yet. I mean, so they're basically definitely dealing with the labor unions back then and the way the labor unions were melting. They had no unions back then. So people they force you to work 16-hour days, 15-hour days. They make you work 6 days a week, make you work 7 days a week. They could do whatever they wanted. There was no stipulations for safety or any safety regulations. There was none of that back then. So people died at the job all the time. In fact, people just worked themselves to death, literally, back then in that industrial age. And these guys there was a story about the Pinkertons. They brought the Pinkertons in, who was like this Texas crime fighting unit, right? And they brought them in to bust up one thing, and the Pinkertons wound up murdering, shooting, and killing union people because they went on strike, and they wound up killing them. It's a big story back then, and I think that we're going to see a similar situation of that go down. I mean, because when the union would strike, if they tried to bring in other workers, the union would beat the other workers up before they can get in there. So they try to bring in, they'll beat you up, they'll hurt you. You're not allowed
break
to come
kneecaps.
Yes,
and even Donald Trump, like he's alluded to some of these things, right? He's alluded to this in some of his speeches about when people riot or not riots, or when people protest, or he said and back in my day, this is what we would do.
Oh yeah, well I tell you this. My father is an electrical union, local 3 in the city, right? And that's where I grew up. He was an electrician, so I could tell you a story. Like there was a Dunkin' Donuts that was around my way, and they didn't hire the union to do their work. They put in electrical work. And then all of a sudden, when it opened up for 1 week, and all of a sudden it burnt down. And then when they rebuilt it, they hired the union to do the electrical work, and never burnt down again. Right? And that's in my lifetime. My father told me how he got his job is they started allowing black people into the electrical union. My father's 6'7". He's a really big man. So he said he was online, and the guy came over to him. This union was run by Jewish people. So he came over to him. They picked him out of a line. The line was like 3 miles long because all the black people in all the city were all lined up there. He was far down the block. There's no way he thought he was going to get applications. They picked him up, got him and 2 other guys. So they drove him to a bar. They took him to the bar. and they dropped the envelope on the table, and the guy left. And then it was Ronnie Richards and Ronnie Jones, his friends that were in there. And that's how they met and became friends. So he opened up the envelope, and there was a picture of a guy in this envelope. And Ronnie Richards and them were like, what are we supposed to do with this? And my dad was from Marcy Projects and stuff, So the guy wound up walking into the bar like a half an hour later. And they beat the hell out of this guy. And they said he went to jail. He got arrested. He went to jail. But within 24 hours, he was out. It was never put on his record, and he had a job in the union, and that's how he got into the union. That's how he did it, and that's the only reason he got in it, and that's the way it was, and that's it. And so that was back in the 70s or early 70s and everything else, and that's just what it was. So, back then you had to think there's no cameras, there's no nothing. It's even worse, right? I said when you're dealing with the Pinkerton Detective Agency, they murdered people. You know what I mean? They if you look up their thing, what they did, they murdered. They went in there and shot.
Maybe they'll bring that into the storyline. That would be very cool.
To do
yeah,
something about that. They may bring those Pinkerton people up in there and shoot these people up and everything.
Yeah. Well, I remember my dad. Like my dad worked for this bridge company, and my grandfather worked for it as well. My dad was a draftsman. My grandfather was like a management, and my dad told me this guy died on the job. Like he was killed working, just because he got like gassed out by some fumes or something. But my dad was like, well, the good news was, my father says, they made some changes. They made some changes so that other people didn't die in the future. And I was like, wow, Dad, that's pretty fucking crazy, but I mean, I think this is what happens is like, okay, you're working like workplace safety and health. You're working in a job and then, somebody dies. Okay, we better make sure we don't do that again so that person doesn't die. But at this time, people would have died all the time.
All the time. People die. People die now.
Just going to work.
People die now. So
they
back
do.
then, it was rampant. There was no, you look at you see like old pictures of people like back in the day in the 70s building skyscrapers, and you see them sitting out on the beams, and they just take the picture of them. There's no safety net. Now you have to have a scaffolding underneath you and you have to have a thing that's tied to. There was none of that. There was no nothing.
That's why the Native Americans were or indigenous people were so popular working on the skyscrapers, as others were saying, because for some reason they weren't afraid of the heights and also the bridges. So they were very popular to hire for some reason. And but I suspect it's probably just because they were considered, disposable.
Yeah, I don't think that they did with Russell, the Russell's last name. I don't think he has a fall, because last season, if you look at the way they did it, they tried to get him. He broke them guys to his knees, made one guy killed himself because he broke him down so bad. I don't think that they play too much into that storyline where it overshadows everything else. Because last year it was like, if this doesn't happen, we're going to be in ruins. And now if you do the same thing next one, we're going to be in ruins, the unions are going to ruin us, it would just be too mundane. So I don't know if they make him the villain yet. I think they win this season. I think the Russells win. I don't know if you want to say, do you think the Russells won the first season? I think they win this season and lose the third season.
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good point. I was thinking it's interesting because I'd read that they are based on the Vanderbilts, but he's with the Vanderbilts and Jay, and there's this other very famous Baron as well that he's with as well. I can't remember his last name, but he's in the room with them, right? And by the way, I love that one actor. He's actually in Schmigadoon. I don't know if anyone's seen Schmigadoon, but he's got like really bad skin. He's got gray hair, and he's got like the most incredible, like really, really rough voice. So he's the guy that he's sort of chatting with, like, can you arrange this lunch for me? And I'm going to see if I can buy this guy off. Do you know that character? He's really, really, his name's, he's Richard Clay.
The guy who's the union head.
The union head, yeah.
Yes.
But anyway, so I'm hoping that's what's happening, that they're just sort of setting everything up. They're laying the groundwork. So right now it's a little slow, but then here we go, kind of thing. So I think next episode things are really going to start to
I
take
think he
off.
might buy him off in the end. I think the guy went back there. I think he's going to front. He's fronting to the people. Oh, we got to stand. So we got to do this. In the end, I think he might buy him off, and then he might get whacked himself for doing that. For turning on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there is some truth to everyone has a price. Like, and I have to say, what he offered him wasn't that impressive. Like, he says everyone has a price. Okay, sure. He put him up in a nice hotel, and then he had him come to his home. That's nice. But what he offered him really wasn't that great. Certainly, I wouldn't put that down as a bribe. So I'm wondering if maybe he's going to, because he said he was going to let him go away and then have him come back. So at this point, it seems like that the union boss is very unified with his other fellow union friends, but he hasn't really given him anything amazing. So
no, nothing at all.
Offered anything amazing. I
mean. What was I going to say? I was going to pivot to something else real quick because we only got a little bit left because it starts at 9 o'clock. So I don't want everyone to be able to go watch it. What was I going to pivot to? Oh, yes. This man, I forgot what he is, but his daughter is married to.
I was about that. Yeah,
offered to move away.
That actor, by the way, he used to be in Fringe. Watson.
Oh, right.
Are you talking about the one he's like the
bald-headed man,
the bald-headed one in the downstairs, right? Yes. Yeah. So that's in it. So what do you think is going to happen? Do you think he's going to take up that offer?
I just think it's. No, I don't think
so either.
I don't think he takes the offer. I think
no,
it's because I don't think the daughter knows that the husband offered this, and I think it's going to get exposed, and the daughter's going to be like, "What are you doing? How dare you try to get my father to go away from me?" Because I don't understand. To me, I really don't get it. What's the big deal? Like, what's the big deal if that's the father? That he was somebody, he just fell on hard times. He was a banker, he was respectable, and now he's just doing a job. I just don't understand why it's such a big deal, because it was not like he was a bum in the street. He was a banker. He just lost his money because he wasn't good at doing investments.
Yeah, it's not like he ever went to jail or served time or anything like that, or or I don't know. But I think it's just, again, it's back to the perceived class system. I mean, it's not as bad as it is, like, America is not as bad as it is in England, but in America they still have they have the old money, the new money kind of thing.
Oh, it is in these small towns right here.
It's a respectability. I think it's like a respectability thing, and I don't know that the daughter. I think you're correct. I don't think she knows, because he was walking around the kitchen saying, "Oh, of course she knows." Like, he probably talked to her about it and came to me with the offer. It's a pretty generous offer, but, like, I think you're right. I think he'll find out that she knew nothing about it. And I'm not saying, like, brokering a deal like that is not. I wouldn't find that out, like, sort of out of thin air, that the husband would broker the deal. That seems to be the type of thing that would have happened back then. That the woman wouldn't have been involved in it, because it's like men's business, I guess. They would, that's how I think he would perceive it. McNeil, I think, is his name.
Yeah.
So I think you're absolutely right on that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like he's going to go. Then he's going to see her before he goes.
Yes.
Or she's going to be like, "Why are you leaving? Like, this is what you wanted." What do you mean?
Yeah, it is a really good offer. Like, I mean, I probably would take it. I would, because I'd be like, "Oh, great." And then I could, I'd have my own pad. I could probably, find some hot guy and, like, just, I'll be, "Hey man, I'm all set."
It's different.
Would you take it, Tony?
This guy's not in that predicament. I don't think he's gonna find no one hot. I think his life is over.
I don't know. He's okay looking.
I'm just saying, maybe he could take one of those ladies in the house with him
for sure.
And say, "Listen,
there you
hey,
go.
Mrs. Bauer,
Yeah,
do you want to go with me and get out of this whole situation?"
Who's the one that's really cranky with the sewing and everything? She's like,
that's the racist one.
Oh God, she's awful.
Isn't that Mrs. Bauer? It's not Mrs. Bauer.
Is that Mrs. Bauer?
Is it
or Adelheid? No, she's too young.
No, she won't go. The other guy's trying to get with.
Yeah, I know he's trying to get with her, right?
Yeah, well, he's trying to get. He was trying to get with her. One kid. Now he wants a chick from across the street.
I think the one in the kitchen where he works is way cuter.
He wanted her. She didn't. She was playing too hard to get.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Okay, yes.
He was playing too hard to get, so he had to move on.
Yeah,
she's definitely better looking
for
than
sure. Yeah, she's
this
much
other one
cuter.
across the street. But she played our hand wrong when it
Yeah.
all came down to it and
Maybe
everything else.
maybe she'll have a change of heart then, like when she
Well,
sees that he's
she
showing
does,
his.
yeah. She'd probably then be like, "Oh, I do
Mm.
like seeing people get promoted from down, and I root for the chick who slept her way to the top. I do. I really hope that she not wins, but I don't want her to be done. Like I'd like to see her
Yeah.
next season too, because
I actually, it's funny that she's supposed to be, like she became from being a maid, but I actually think her clothes are so much nicer than Bertha's. Like, I was like, her dress that she wore, I was like, oh my God, it was so gorgeous. But I think it's like Bertha, she's just like, experimenting and trying to like, okay, what looks good? And she just
Mhm.
sometimes
Which is
misses a little
she doesn't
bit.
know. She used to ask her, "Should I wear
Yeah.
this?" "Oh,
Yeah.
no, it's too much." "Oh, it is too much, you're right." So she didn't
Yes.
have that taste level. This girl, from
Yes.
hanging out with her and see it, she knew
Oh
already.
yeah.
So she has a taste level, better taste than Bertha. She knows how to dress herself up. I was gonna say this, out here where I'm at in upstate New York, I'm not too far from Troy. A lot of this was filmed in Troy.
Oh,
Like the
amazing.
majority of this season is filmed in Troy, New York, but all because of all the old buildings that are in there. So a lot of when you see them walking around and walking by, that's all done in Troy, New York. So I'm gonna go down there where they
Hmm.
did the actual filming, and I'm gonna shoot a couple of videos down there so you can see exactly how the buildings look and everything else. But they have all those old buildings all down there in Troy, New York and stuff. So
It's really beautiful. It's a really beautiful area. The thing I'm wondering, the street though, I wonder if they just put something down, like or how they deal with that whole thing with the one thing I was gonna say, I don't like Nathan's character, what's his name? Ward McAllister, him
yeah.
crossing the road. That was pretty funny.
Well, McAllister, I don't know what side I'm here. He's playing both sides.
Yeah,
He's
oh
gonna
yeah,
get
he
caught
is
up
for
in that.
sure. And I think
He's
he's
gonna
gonna
get caught up in
lose.
that. All right, before we go, let's talk about Aunt
Sure.
Agnes and her sister.
Oh yeah.
What do you think about the Reverend? Do you think he really loves her? Do you think that's where it goes or what?
I do. Well, first of all, I love that actor. He's from the Dead Poets Society. Do you remember him from that?
Mm-hmm.
Years and years and years ago. He's been around for a long time. No, I totally buy him, and it would be a good match. Like it's not like women would often marry clergy, even upper class women. So it's not like it wouldn't be a good match. It is a good match, but her sister is going to probably try to thwart it. And I think, like she said, in the preview, she would probably be terrified to be alone.
Her sister's right. I think her
Mhm.
sister has every right to be mad. She's paid for everything, every piece of toilet paper, toothpaste,
Mhm.
dress, everything for this lady. And then you're just gonna bounce on me in our old age and just leave me by myself like that. I think it's kind of foul. So I'm with Aunt Agnes. I've done everything for you. I've paid for everything for you. You wouldn't have anything if it was for me. You'd be a bum on the street if it wasn't for me. And now you're just gonna abandon me for some dude like that. I'm with on Agnes on this one.
Oh, well, I don't think it's going to happen. Like, I don't think it's going to happen. But if I think that Ada has the right to happiness, though. I think she deserves
She
to have
does have the right
happiness.
to happiness, but she doesn't got to be running off and leaving. It is what it is. You know what I mean? So we're gonna have to.
I mean, I have to say, like Agnes, by the way, she's kind of like
Why
the
wouldn't they want Agnes? Agnes is hot. Why wouldn't
she's
no one
awesome.
try to
Well,
get her?
I mean, I love Christine Baranski.
Yeah.
The her she gets all the best lines, I think.
What is she like 70, 75 years old in real life?
She looks really good. Yeah.
But I think she's like 75, right?
Do
The
you think she's
actress.
hot?
I think she is. Yeah.
She is.
Number
She's
one,
71.
Number one, she's from New York. Yeah, I like
Yes.
anyone from New York. I think she's like at least 72, 73 years old in real life. I have a thing for an uppity woman. I like an uppity woman. I think it sounds sexy. I like British accents. I love
Mhm.
uppity style women.
See, I think she does a good job because she's got that sort of affected accent. Like she sounds American, but
Mhm,
it's very affected, if that makes sense.
mhm.
Whereas Marion kind of, I don't know, she just sounds like she's speaking like it's today.
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
like. I
yeah.
think
She doesn't have the draw that they
the
have.
draw. Yeah, exactly. And like Cynthia Nixon, obviously, is also from New York. I
Mhm.
think she does a
But
good
she
job as
doesn't
well as he
sound
is.
like a New Yorker. Like there's
Well, maybe she's
certain
not from New York, but she worked in New York on
yeah, she
Sex and the
doesn't
City.
sound like a New Yorker. She doesn't have that New York accent. Like she
Yeah,
doesn't. Cynthia Nixon. She plays Sex in the City, but she don't sound like she's from New York at all. Like
yeah,
Sarah Jessica Parker don't sound like she's from. None of them sound like they're from New York. You know, this chick you hear her talk like Cyndi Lauper sounds like she's from New York. Fran Drescher
hmm
sounds like she's from New York. Like there's a talk, there's a slang. We have a little accent. She doesn't have that. You know what I mean?
yes.
But you know, I like Cynthia Nixon. I like them all. I think they are, but she deserves to be happy. But in the end, I think Aunt Agnes will always be right, and I don't trust this guy. I
Oh,
don't.
really?
No, I
What do
don't
you?
think.
What's his? What would be his motive?
I just don't see it yet. I don't see it. I don't
Okay.
know it, but and it's hard for me. I don't want to. I don't think they'll do the same thing because they did that last year. They brought the
Yeah.
guy back trying to get the money, so I don't want to rerun that situation. But maybe he has some type of scandalous past that's going to get brought up, or something that's going to make everything else. Fran Dresser is from Queens. She's from
Mhm.
my neighborhood in Queens. Actually, I have already told stories about Fran Dresser and everything else. She was friends with my mother.
Oh,
And that,
really?
yes, yes, yes. She was friends with my mom and everything else when she was back in the day. My neighborhood's a very big, like it's a Jewish neighborhood I grew up in.
Mhm.
Electchester. Only way you could live there is if you were an electrician. And
Okay.
it said Jewish people ran electrical unions. So Judd Hurst, who played in Taxi
Oh,
and played in
yes.
the show, he's from my neighborhood.
Mhm.
He grew up there. He's from my neighborhood.
I
Bobby
just saw
Bonilla.
him in something recently, like a modern show that he was starring in. I think it
Yeah,
might have been the Nazi Hunters or something like
yeah, I've
that.
met him so many times. He would just
Yeah,
walk
what's he
around the neighborhood.
like?
He's just a regular guy. You just wouldn't even know he's anything. He was just a regular dude. You just didn't. I was young, so it didn't ring a bell. You know what I mean to me
Yeah.
back then.
Y-
They just were people hanging out. Like Fran when she hung out, and she was just Fran. She wasn't
Yeah.
famous yet. You know what I mean? So it was nothing. It was just who she was. You know. But he lived there. Bobby the baseball player, Bobby Bonilla. He grew up in my neighborhood. Big Daddy Kane was in my neighborhood. Cool G Rap was in my neighborhood. Kid from Kid and Play was in my neighborhood. Salt from Salt and Pepper was in my neighborhood. So they all were just used to see them all the time. It's in the grocery store. When they made money and they got paid, they all moved to my neighborhood. There's condominiums over there.
Oh.
They all moved to the condos over
You
there. I
know, I
lived
was
in a
gonna
very nice.
say that's really weird. About 20 years ago, I did a film, and both Audra McDonald and Donna Murphy were in it. And like Donna Murphy plays Mrs. What's her name? Uh, what's her character's name? She's the Carrie's mother, and it's not showing me her name for some reason. Audra McDonald plays Dorothy Scott, so she plays the mom of Peggy. But it
Mhm.
was weird because they're both in. I worked on a movie with them both, and then now they're both in this. But they're both Broadway actresses. There's a lot of Broadway actors in this show for some reason.
Oh, all right. So we'll go into history of our neighborhoods and all that. But this
I
is
know.
things people have already heard me say these things and everything else and all that. But we'll get out of here right now so y'all can get ready for the show. It's about to start. I'll be
Mhm.
back next week. Every week I am here, pregame show, rocking it with you. And so Heidi will come back on. Hopefully we'll get Heidi
Oh,
back
I'd love to.
and everything. Subscribe to our channel if you can.
Thank
Please
you.
do so. You know, the link is in the description. It's also been in the chat by our fabulous moderators. I put it in the chat. Put it in there again if you can and everything else. And no, John Haymaker, she was not my nanny. She was my mom. She was my mama's friend. Pizza place around my way.
So cool.
Pizza is named after her. Pizza place around my way. And my friend Chris was in Goodfellas and everything. So if you ever watch
Oh,
Goodfellas and you watch the Ray Liotta's character when he was young, before he grew up and became Ray Liotta, that's my friend. And we've been friends. Christopher Scott Cerrone is his name, and friends my whole life and stuff like that. I remember when he got that role to play that part. But that's just what it is around my way. It's just the way it was. All right. Smash the like buttons, thumbs up. We'll be back next week and everything else. Will Phil be on here as well? Hopefully Phil will be on. He's got to catch up. He's in the
is he
catch up
watching?
mode.
Is he watching the
Yeah,
show?
he's catching up right now. So hopefully he'll be caught up by next
Mhm.
week and he'll be here next week and everything.
Yeah, I love Ray Liotta.
and all of that. All right. So if you, Heidi, what do you got going on next on your channel before we get out of here?
Well, I'm working on a video about the new Shogun trailer and everything. It's taking me a while because there's so many. I don't know if you're planning on watching it, Tony. It's coming out in February 2024. Shogun on FX, based off the James Clavell book.
All right, Shogun, definitely check it out.
It's
Are
Japanese,
you going to cover All for All Mankind? I will try. I'm trying. I got a lot. I'm just trying to do.
My husband's watching that. He loves it.
I like it too. I watch it. I just don't know if I have the time. I'm just trying to get everything done. I'm trying to do something. All right. Thank you. I will try my best. I'll be back with a From stream later on this week. If you like the way I do this, please thumbs up this. Spread this across the realm. And of course,
I'll come to your From stream because I love From.
There we go. And until next time.
Bye, guys.
You know who it is. Peace and stay sexy.